So all this will need the support of Washington, and India knows that, and of course also the regional buy-in from Southeast Asia, and not only in terms of defense and security understanding, but also in terms of how to secure the rising need of economic confidence for India in terms of expanding its market access and also supply chain and food security. Also, Beijing is looking for India in terms of getting a better reinforcement of its BRICS Global South initiative, getting India on board. But on the larger scheme of things, as we've seen how India's rise as one of the biggest economies in the world, in terms of the demographic advantage, this is the strength that Washington is well aware of. The rising population of around 900 million in terms of working age, and relatively young nation, 65% below 35 years of age. And of course, also in terms of modest policies in Make in India initiative, Smart Cities Mission, Digital India. So this presents the perfect complementing factor for Washington in its technological drive, and as a deviation from this Chinese dependence on the market, and also of course on technological capacity. So I would say that this SCO meetup is much more of calibrated strategic hedge. It's not a long-term pivot. Modi knows this very well. It's much of a message to Trump that despite the tariff measures, India still has its own capacity to act, independently, and of course to treat China not as a short-term or long-term friend, but also as a needed strategic hedging partner in this time of need. But of course, also looking beyond that, what has Russia got to do with this? With the ties with Russia now, and the influence of Russia on Beijing, and of course also the policies of India towards Ukraine. So this in play, we can see that the whole equation of maintaining equilibrium with China, and how the border issue has being the main factor, and of course to compartmentalize that with regards to this economic need of China for India, to reset the trade deficit. So all this are being made into a structural necessity for India to be part of the SCO. But beyond that, we are well aware of the reality on hand, on the ground, that for India to maintain is security aspect and security needs, especially in terms of border security, especially in terms of its relations with Pakistan, and to maintain its strategic outward expansion of its security buy-in from the region, including in the Indian Ocean. We have seen how the incursion of the Chinese naval might in the Indian Ocean will have to have the need and support of Washington as not only the primary security partner, but also increasingly in terms of economic dependence for Washington as well. So I don't think that this is the long-term play, but it's a little maneuvering room for Modi and for India to have a more breathing space. But of course, they have been very calculative and strategic and careful not to send a wrong message, not to go overboard in giving a wrong message to Quad partners, to current allies, and of course, especially to Trump and Washington. And this is only part of the strategic hedging necessity for now, Nabila.
Yeah, well, I would like to bring in a little from Trump's decision not to come to India for the Quad summit that's due to happen later this year, and that's a clear message. The reports in the United States suggest that Trump will no longer be coming to India to be part of the Quad. Patikrit, would you want to tell us how India's decision to lean towards China has further irked the United States, with a clear message from US that Trump no more will participate in the Quad meet that's happening in India? Why do you think that's happened?
Well, Nabila, we are not leaning towards anybody. I mean, if you look at in terms of trade, United States and China, they are strategic adversaries of each other, and yet they are, two of the biggest trade partners for each other. So if United States can do that, why can't we? Secondly, let me put it this way. I just want to mention one issue. Please, we have to understand there's a huge difference between de-escalation and demobilization. There is a considerable amount of de-escalation in the borders, but de-escalation does not mean demobilization. So the deployment will still be there because there are challenges. But de-escalation, substantially, it has happened. See, on the issue of Quad, India has always been very categorical that Quad cannot be against any particular country. We believe in the rule of law. We believe in rule-based order. We believe in the freedom of the sea, freedom of navigation in the sea. But we have consistently from the beginning on the issue of Quad, we have stated that it cannot be either against China or against Russia, or rather it cannot be any particular country against. So I think on the issue of Quad, you would see a lot of bilateral engagements happening already between India, Australia, and Japan. So on the issue of Quad, what United States has to do, they will have to decide on their own. Because if you look at their entire, Indo-Pacific, doctrine and the policy, by pivoting more towards Pakistan and giving those strange signals from Washington, it is for them to decide what they want to do with Quad. It is for them to decide what they want to do with Indo-Pacific. You have an Asim Munir going to United States and from United States soil saying that, we would use nuclear weapons. He said that we would attack India next time from eastwards. So I think then after that, what do you expect for India to do? To have that trust factor on the Quad also. So please understand, we are reaching a level of equilibrium. I keep on saying this is a realigned equilibrium. Reason is we are not saying that we have sorted out all issues with China. We are not saying that henceforth there will be no communication with United States. United States is a strategic partner of India. United States is important for India and it remains that way. Similarly, when it comes to China, I think, this entire new beginning, at least in terms of communication, is a very positive thing. Even on contentious issues, we have to talk. And on issue of India and China, there are major areas of divergence. There are major areas of status quo, but also there are major areas of convergence, including this whole practice of the West to you have these unilateral sanctions, the practice of, going to war even when there is no UN mandate. And when it comes to the larger dimension of Quad, United States will have to decide what they want to do. You can't keep on calling India a dead economy and then say that, look, you have to be my partner in the Quad. Of course, we are committed to the Quad. We have never said we are not part of the Quad. But this whole binary approach that if you're part of Quad, you have to be against Russia. If you're part of Quad, you cannot talk to China, but we can. I mean, from the American perspective, that binary is something India has always been uncomfortable with, because of its strategic autonomy. So I think what is happening in SCO does not mean that US story or India-US story is over. That is a very vibrant story that will always remain. And I still believe there's a huge divergence between what White House says and what Wall Street believes in. Wall Street is heavily committed and invested in India, and that would invariably remain. That story is intact in Indo-US relationship and America, Sino-American relationship as well. Business will go on. Peace will come. But at the same time, nobody has the right to bully each other. When China tried to do something in Galwan,
but when you say business will go on, peace will come, well, we will make peace. Indians are resilient. But at the same time, realistically speaking, the impact that Trump tariffs will have on India, we were having reports after reports on the mass layoffs that India fears in many of the sectors that would be affected. How do you think India can tackle that? We know that we have moved past real adversities in the past as well. But at this point, India is a serious and a major player when it comes to exports to the United States.
Please understand, Nabila, I want to make it very clear. Our exports to United States is only, it's going to impact, the impact is on 5% of our entire exports. Number two, there are many areas America has already exempted. Those exports do not have tariffs because it impacts Americans more. So overall impact on India is only 1% of India's GDP. So
in the gems and jewelry sector, nearly 1.5 lakh people could be laid off. In the textile sector, nearly 2 lakh odd people could be laid off. And you have multiple sectors like the shrimp industry, where we're looking at an unregulated industry there, where people literally peel shells of the shrimps, the thousands and lakhs of them employed just for that. They could all lose jobs. So the lower strata, lakhs of them could lose their jobs. So at that cost.
No, but look at it. The alternate of this would have been to give up or open your poultry, dairy, agriculture, fisheries sector, where 15 crore people would have lost their livelihoods. Please understand
that. But is it just that? Is it just that? Is it just
Is it?
that India
Absolutely.
did not
That's one of
allow an opening into our agricultural sector, that we've got 50% tariffs? We hear the real understanding to this problem is that Trump is very sore that India did not acknowledge him mediating India-Pakistan truce. That is more the problem, less to do with the agricultural sector or India buying oil from Russia. So now that we know that, and now it's largely established that Trump is really sore and bitter that India is not acknowledging him and his role, how do you look at it diplomatically?
No, but I think why should we give acknowledgement to United States? Why should we give acknowledgement to United States on a bilateral issue between India and Pakistan? Trump wants to appropriate what Indian armed forces did, and we have to, oil his ego. That's not going to happen. This is a different world today. And when it comes to the trade, you have to go through the trade negotiations that happen when India and United States, the kind of effort being put by Mr. Piyush Goyal ji to ensure that we give that message very clear. We are not going to open up those sectors. And when it comes to those sectors where the layoffs are happening, it's only a matter of 3 to 6 months that issue will get sorted out. Look at the entire approach of 40 countries where diversification is happening among the global south economies that India is targeting. Secondly, the GST 2.2 that is going to come during the festive season, you would have a major impetus of that, discounting for the problems that we have right now. But when we had the sanctions from United States, a post-nuclear test, and we withered that situation, emerged as a more resilient economy. We will wither this too. But for the sake of those few lakh people, I do respect that those are challenges the government will take care of. The alternate would have been to open up those sectors and allow the genetically modified, products to come from United States. We will not allow that. Come what may. Let there be another sanction. But we will not allow that to happen. So we have to have a cost-benefit analysis in terms of the cost we have paid and the benefit that we have accrued. The benefit in this case is far more than the marginal cost that we are actually paying right now, and we are okay with that. This visit to China is to diversify the market even more, and that the Indian government will do, and I'm very confident about that. Back to you.
Okay, 3 to 6 months before we'll bounce back. That's satisfying if that's true. If we are on track on that front, then this could calm nerves. But 3 to 6 months, what could be the losses? Nonetheless, Manish Chand wanted to come in on that. Is it just the agricultural sector not being opened up to the United States that we face such steep tariffs? Because a whole host of reports, even from the United States, suggest that Trump is extremely mad with India for not acknowledging his role on striking truce with Pakistan. Well, India has been very stern that there was no ruse given to India to strike a deal with Pakistan. There was no trade talk that led to India finally withdrawing. None of that happened. It was Indian armed forces that decided when to stop. So Trump got no benefit of doubt there. And that's what's irked Donald Trump.
So yes, it is not just about trade. It is not about those red lines in trade negotiations. I think the story of Trump's frustration with India starts much earlier, much even before he became president. I was in New York in September last year, and the Trump team reached out to Prime Minister Modi's team that he wanted to have a meeting with him. And at that point, just before the elections. And I understand that it was conveyed to him that it would be improper just before the elections. And if he meets Trump, he'll have to also meet Kamala Harris. In the case, Prime Minister did not meet either of them. I think he held it against him. Trump is an egotist. He's a narcissist. Some would say even a pathological case of narcissism. If you alienate him, if you earn his wrath, this is what you're seeing. The man is hitting all the time. And if you go back to the February visit by Prime Minister Modi, the warmth is missing, the bonhomie is missing there. So it was building up all this while. And I think you are right about it, partly, that in the operations, he has said 50 times or even more that, United States did it. And 50 times we repudiated it out of, straight. That no, there was nothing to do with it. Now I understand where the Indian position is coming from, because this is a strictly bilateral issue, and we will not allow any superpower or whoever it is to meddle in what is a bilateral issue, and it was decided between DGMOs of the two countries. But at the same time, we have to also partly tangentially acknowledge that the United States was able to drill some sense into Pakistan. That, you got to climb down. That there was some behind the scenes
Kind of sense.
road.
It was more to do with United States telling Pakistan, "Hey, we have a trade deal. I'm going to deal with you. We will,
and also
we
that,
will make more money.
you
We will
cannot
make
go
more
on.
money." Trump.
No, Pakistan is a rogue state, and I don't think for the tactical reason he's doing all this right now, largely to hit out at India. But it is very clear, it should be clear that our nukes safe in Pakistan's hands. So I think what is done is that you are 50 times saying no, it has hurt his ego, and Pakistan has gone, on overdrive, and also nominated him for the Nobel. Look at the number of awards Prime Minister Modi gets wherever he goes. I'm not comparing.
No,
we don't
popular leaders, and a stark contrast from Donald Trump.
Right.
Either way, there's a huge community of Indians in the United States, and Trump would like to stay in good equation with them, and he's tried to please them by saying, "I was the one who cut a deal and struck a truce between the two." India has refused to accept that, and that was the start of deteriorating relations between India and the United States. 50% tariff, while China gets only a 30% tariff, despite actually China being the bigger enemy to the United States all this while. So suddenly the tables have turned, and India is bearing the brunt of Trump's bruised ego. We should certainly say that, and that's what it appears to be. Well, India is no pushover. We are exploring nearly 50 other countries to see where we can push our supply chains. China is certainly one of them, to see how we can make our import-driven trade with China into an export-driven. How long will that take, and how far will this bilateral with Xi will go? What kind of talks or deals will be established in this 40-minute chat that's happening right now live? We're waiting to hear. Thanks very much. We will come back to you. I request all of our guests to stay with us. A short break, and we'll be right back on this.
This is nothing. My score has 5 stars. तेरे को पता है मेरी स्कोर है ना ऑटोमेटिक है और वो भी 7 स्पीड. कुछ भी. Hello guys. My score can fly to Jupiter like a rocket.
Skoda.
ये बेस्ट है सर.
हमेशा वाला क्यों नहीं?
मिश्रा जी, आपके लिए फूलों की बरसात. बिरला ओपस एश्योरेंस देने के लिए.
मतलब प्रोडक्ट वारंटी.
वारंटी तो है ही, ये एक्स्ट्रा है. 1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे.
वापस करके देंगे?
वो भी फ्री.
फ्री?
पेंटिंग में पहली बार बिरला ओपस एश्योरेंस. रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर.
Hi, this is Vaman Irani.
Hi, this is Karishma Tanna.
Hi, I'm Nushat Bharucha.
Catch this conversation on News9.
Catch this conversation on News9. Catch me and this conversation on News9.
Hi, this is Shahid Kapoor, and catch this conversation on News9.
Love makes you go the distance. Unlimited Love. The B6 Pack 2 starts at 21.9 lakh.
Light, camera, and action. Kick back, relax, grab your favorite snack because News9 is here with your weekend dose of entertainment. It's time to take a deeper dive into the buzzworthy happenings of the entertainment world. From celebrity gossips to exclusive conversations, from nostalgic moments to News9's pick of the week, don't worry, we've got you covered here. And I hope you've grabbed your popcorn by now because News9's page 3 is here to serve you everything that we call entertainment. So do stay tuned every Saturday and Sunday, 2:30 p.m.
A small window of hope has opened for Nimisha Priya. You know, human beings live by hope. Is Vijay challenging Dravidian party? Payments have been made, but no books inside. If there is corruption at the BO office, maybe I want to learn Hindi, that I do not know how to speak Kannada. Go to the second part.
to have Hindi compulsion.
2 kids were asked to clean the toilet because of their caste. All these kids were forced to do it. I will clearly protest against this. 3 passes, Mr. Gowda. People rush. I'm asking you, what makes Palaniswamy so confident? We're sitting on moral boulders. Tamil Nadu seems to have become extremely unsafe.
To some live images there, you have it, live images coming of Modi and Xi Jinping. It appears their bilateral meet may have just ended. We get to get some clarity on that, whether the meeting has ended. But this is a meeting where you have leaders from at least top 20 countries who've come together, largely from Southeast Asia. Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping's bilateral there. If we could get the nats up, let's listen into what Prime Minister is saying.
ये अपने आप में काफ़ी महत्वपूर्ण वो तमाम मुद्दे जिनको शायद इसमें रखा जा सकता है उन पर हमने अपने जो खास मेहमान हमारे साथ जुड़े हैं उनसे भी हमने चर्चा की थी.
All right, we're yet to get that audio there, Prime Minister Modi, but you see very clearly there and on the sidelines of SCO, Prime Minister Modi, part of it. It's a multilateral summit, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a Eurasian political, economic and international security organization. So 10 member states who are part of it, and India, China, Russia among them. Modi holding that very key bilateral meet with Xi Jinping. In fact, the host country, Xi and Modi meeting after 7 years. 1 year ago, they met in Russia, and that's when it appeared that thaws between the two countries began. A year later, Prime Minister Modi has already attended this meet, marking a huge progress between India and China relations. And the whole red carpet that was rolled out for Prime Minister Modi's arrival was in itself establishing how China is keen on making amends with India on both sides. They both need each other at a time when Trump has imposed steep tariffs on both countries, India more. Prime Minister Modi, among several world leaders there, who's currently in northern China's Tianjin as part of the SCO summit. We're looking at a bilateral meet of nearly 40 minutes. It's over, I sense, considering these are live visuals coming in from Tianjin. Let me quickly bring in Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, former Secretary of the MEA, joining us. He served in China. In fact, we also have Ambassador Anil Trigunyat, former Deputy Chief of Mission in the rank of Ambassador in Embassy of India, Moscow. Thanks very much for joining us, sir. We also have Dr. Manjari Singh, Assistant Professor, Amity Institute of International Studies. Let me first begin with Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, who's also served in China. Ambassador, this is a big meeting today. India-China meet is certainly grabbing headlines the world over, considering the two neighbors were bitter all this while because China violating border protocols. Finally, they've come together after a little nudge from Trump. And Trump may not have expected this unity between the two. And not just China and India, we're also looking at Russia in the mix. So India, China, Russia coming together on one platform is certainly sending a lot of tension across the West. Trump is not liking this.
Well, thank you for having me on the show. It's a historic meeting, to be quite frank. I see this in a slightly different perspective. I see this as a continuation of the dialogue that Prime Minister Modi had with President Xi Jinping in Kazan, where the two sides had decided that we would try and establish a relationship that is mutually beneficial. And we would certainly look at the very key issue of the border transgressions, of the violations of the protocols and agreements between us that were done by Chinese, and also look at the broader context of the relations, including economic ties, collaboration on multilateral fora, and so on. And I think what has happened since Kazan is a very reassuring sentiment, because on the directions of the two leaders, there have been several high-level meetings of the defense minister, of the foreign ministers, and of course, finally, the special representatives met. And a lot of groundwork for this has been done at the official level, at the WMCC, the working mechanism, and we've had a lot of progress. So today's meeting, I would see more in that context of India and China seeing the complementarities of a relationship in building the Asian century. You just saw Prime Minister come in from Tokyo, which is another very principal partner of ours. You mentioned the thing about Trump, and I do think there is an importance of that as well, because what the United States has been doing in terms of its tariff action is not justified. It is something that is out of sync with the way the world needs to move at such a critical time. But they have to make those corrections themselves. I do not think India is moving in response to Trump. It may be a factor, but it is certainly not a reaction.
Interesting to note, and well, yes, you're right. In Kazan, Prime Minister Modi has met with Xi. There was already talk, and informal invite for SCO had already gone out at that time. Now, with the Foreign Minister of China, Wang Yi, coming into India weeks ago, a formal invitation followed. Prime Minister Modi has accepted. So less to do with Trump, more to do with India's autonomy on dealing with China, on establishing trade relations. It just so happens that Trump has imposed 50% tariffs, and India also at this point looking keenly on establishing new avenues to push our supply chain. Could China really be the place India could really push our products? Sir, you've served in China. Would you be able to give us the verticals in terms of business where India, China can really explore and grow? Because largely we are importing from China, exporting less. We have a 94 billion trade deficit with China. How do you make that surplus?
I think it will require a lot of effort to make it a surplus, but I think we should certainly look towards greater balance. And that greater balance will happen on two fronts. The first is that there has to be certain understanding on the Chinese side that the kind of technical barriers or other inhibitions to market access that is present in China today needs to be addressed. There is, of course, the case that, not a single Indian IT company does any major project in China. And given the kind of structure that they have, there is great potential. That is one particular area. The second potential area in which India can make great progress is in pharmaceuticals, because, we still have a great advantage in terms of generics. China also produces a large number of APIs, and there is a mutual complementarity that can be explored. And there are various other products on the industrial side. We already have an increasing share in our trade basket of what we call intermediate products. In other words, products that go from India, probably get some processing in China, then they come back. A lot of it is in the electronics and light machinery industry sector. Of the that there has to be much more investments Chinese side in India. The Chinese investments in India are actually rather small compared to the size of economy that it concession and we can see how once there is more investment in India, supply chains that are necessary. I wanted to emphasize once again that India is actually a major power, and China needs to understand that particular reality. India is not a regional power, something that is confirmed. And once that recognition is possible on the Chinese side, there will be a better understanding on how our economy can be structured. Us can collaborate baskets, and we can work together towards having a greater presence in the global markets.
Ambassador Anil, give us a sense on this meeting, the bilateral meet that's currently.
This is indeed the bilateral meeting, as you can see if live pictures, because normally there would have different and the venue and the backdrops are different, but this is obviously done in Tianjin, so it's a different venue. India and China have not used for a bilateral context before, but this is definitely that one. If you look at the kind of people who are sitting on either side of the table, so there's Prime Minister Modi on one side, President Xi Jinping on the other. Prime Minister Modi is accompanied by the Indian.
All right, we're going to try and fix this connection. Ambassador Anil, please do step in, sir, on this bilateral meet that's just about come in, visuals of which has come in. We believe it's still underway. Live images of Prime Minister Modi making his point there. We hear, we see both those leaders talk. We can't really hear them. There's no audio yet, so we're not too sure what's spoken in this bilateral meet. But not a closed-door meet. You have a lot of officials there seated around. A very important meeting here today. All that is said will be etched in paper as well. So, very important meet between the two countries. What is likely to have been spoken there?
Well, I think that, as Ambassador Bhattacharya also mentioned, this is a very, very important meeting following the Kazan summit that happened. And I believe that both sides are very keen to ease out the relationship, to find the requisite trust, which has been missing in the relationship since Galwan especially, and try to resolve the outstanding issues, which was seen after the visit of Wang Yi when he came here. The two working groups have been set up to resolve the border dispute or start working on that. So I think that today China very smartly has used this SCO summit essentially to give the bilateral twist to our relationship, taking it to a different level from a very highly negative one to considerably positive, I would say, at the moment. But since we have been hard once, twice, we would need to be very cautious. And this essentially the focus would be
हमारे संबंधों को एक सकारात्मक दिशा मिली। सीमा पर डिसएंगेजमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की। दोनों देशों के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट भी फिर से शुरू की जा रही है। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के हित जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। एजेंसी चीन द्वारा एचसीओ की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। एक बार फिर चीन यात्रा के निमंत्रण के लिए और आज की हमारी बैठक के लिए आपका हार्दिक धन्यवाद।
Okay, there you have it. Prime Minister Modi speaking of Manasarovar Yatra also kicking off after India-China came to a thaw. We're looking at flights resuming. We see trade channels are opening up, and the Manasarovar Yatra, particularly mentioned by Prime Minister Modi, resumes. So certainly India and China's relationship at a far better place than it ever has been. At least in the last 7 years, it had deteriorated after the Galwan clash, after China violated border protocols. Now you have finally the two countries coming together, with China agreeing to live up to its bargain in terms of border control. And here now, it's a step forward coming to bilateral talks on trade, on security, on defense, and a host of other things. The SCO summit is certainly moving in that direction, and India-China establishing its role together as friends. Now, how far will this really absorb the shock that India has received from Trump tariffs? That we've got to wait and watch. But Anil, you were speaking, I cut you short because we heard Prime Minister Modi. I will take you in, and we will play out Prime Minister Modi's bite yet again in a few moments. But Anil, a quick word from you.
Well, I think that Prime Minister Modi has once again reiterated that while there is a commitment to the relationship, this has to be based on 3 M's, as has been talked about, that mutual respect, mutual interest, and mutual sensitivities. And he has, of course, while referring to 2.8 billion people's welfare and market, so to say, he has also brought in the trade question in a very effective manner, in my
view. As part of the SCO summit, what exactly is discussed with all the partners of SCO? Give us a little sense and break it down for us on what and how significant the SCO meet really is for Southeast Asia.
Well, this is something that is across the spectrum between South Asia and Central Asia within the whole Eurasian context now. As you know, that SCO was essentially a Shanghai 5. It was set up essentially to sort out the borders problems between China and Russia, as well as the Central Asian countries, 4 of them, which was done. And thereafter, they decided to expand it. And India and Pakistan in 2017 became the initial members. And then we have had Iran and further Belarus in that now. So this 10-member grouping, and then you, of course, have the dialogue partners and others. Turkish president is also there. So from our perspective, we have to see that in this particular organization, there are 3 major players. That is Russia, China, and India. It is always often commented by a lot of people that it is a China-centric organization, and therefore the Chinese have hefted this. But the very fact that without India being present in this at this moment, it would be very difficult. So I personally feel in this particular summit, if you were to look at it, of course, security product, they will come up with a development strategy for the whole decade. There will be leaders' declaration, which will be commenting on various security challenges. But from India's perspective, there are 2 other things. We have brought on board many things like digital infrastructure, the healthcare, the collaboration, P2P connect, and all that. But one of the most important things from India's perspective is how to address the issue of terrorism. Because the SCO also, ironically, has a country that is a state sponsor of terrorism and had recently indulged in that once again in Pahalgam. And we have seen when Dr. Rajnath Singh was there, our defense minister, that the statement could not be signed because Pakistan insisted only on their own Zafar Express issue. So I think that we have to expose that, which I think Prime Minister will be doing that. And if we are able to somehow see in the statement, leader statement, or somewhere the reference to cross-border terrorism, even if not by naming Pakistan, everybody knows it, and China's have very strong relationship with Pakistan. And so I think that would be conveying a message. Otherwise, the hypocrisy in terrorism issues will continue, and we'll have to continue to fight the lone battle in that regard.
All right. One thing's for sure, India and China are both economic powerhouses. Coming together is in the interest of the 2 economies. China is the 2nd largest economy in the world. India is inching towards being the 3rd largest. So both of us are competitors, but yet at the same time neighbors, and we've got to be civil. Now, can we be more than civil? Can this friendship turn into a strong bond where we're self-sufficient and no Western power can threaten us? In fact, Trump's tariffs almost looks like he's bullying nations like China and India particularly with a 50% tariff. And India's shown that we are no pushover, in many ways responding in measure by buying more Russian oil now. When US can do trade with Russia, why can't India purchase oil from Russia? I mean, this is hypocrisy to the level. So clearly India showing that nothing can bully us, India stepping up its oil purchase from Russia, that itself has irked Trump as much. Manjari, Dr. Manjari, your take on India, China being competitors yet neighbors, coming to a table to build economic partnership. How best do you see this meet could actually thrust that?
Okay, so this meet is going to be very cordial between the two leaders, but I don't see, like you mentioned, that a very strong bond being forged between the two leaders or between the two countries, because there's a saying in Chinese, like which translates in English as there can't be two tigers on a mountain. So if you look at it, I mean, both India and China are the two tigers in Asia. So it is obvious that China does not want India to be a reasoned voice in the global south or the leader of the global south. It wants itself to be portrayed as one. So that ways, I think there will be a lot of competition in the global south. But yes, some cordial relationships, and like Ambassador Trigunya talked about the 4 areas of concern or 4 areas of areas that the two countries need to work out. So I think they will be kind of moving towards realizing those 4 areas, which is the trade, because we know that there is a trade imbalance when it comes to India and China, wherein we import less than we export from China. The other aspect is cross-border terrorism. So we have to see whether China is going to call out Pakistan. As of now, we know that it has been very pro-Pakistan, the all-weather friendship that they have between each other. So right now, especially when Pakistan is also kind of kowtowing to the Americans. So in that aspect, how is China going to perceive at Pakistan, or whether it is going to call out the terrorism, cross-border terrorism that is portrayed by, that is functioned by Pakistan or not? The third aspect, which is very important, is the dam construction that is happening across the Sangpo. So that is also one of the areas that the two countries need to work on. I think these are the areas that were spelt out when Wang Yi was here in India. So yes, there is going to be a cordial relationship, and more so, I think we should look at it from the strategic balancing of between US and China. I mean, we were very friendly with US, but at the same time, we did not have that warmth when it came to our relations with China. But now that is changing. So I think that is going to happen. So a strategic balancing, of course, cordial relationship, of course, but I don't think that India is going into the camp of China, if that is what you meant by the warmth in the relationship. Thank you.
But does it make more sense to be good with China in terms of all efforts that India is putting to be there, present, part of the SCO? Does it make more sense, Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, to be more friendly with China, give more importance to China than we give to the United States?
Once again, I must say India is a major power. We can afford to be friendly with everybody. And I don't think we need adversarial relations to balance. We have to work out our own strategy for a country of 1.4 billion that is moving towards becoming the 3rd largest economy by the end of this particular decade. There is a lot that we can do. So I think we need to have much more confidence. But I think we also need to be realistic. And I think my co-panelist also pointed out that there is currently a deficit of trust. And that needs to be set right by the Chinese side. There's another Chinese saying which says that the one who ties the knot must untie it. So the Chinese have created the problem on the border, and they need to be responsible and correct that. They need to go back to some of those old agreements, or we'd have agreements that are actually workable. And in some ways, what we do find in the Wang Yi meeting with NSA Doval, when we came out with the 10-point formula, there are these references to these groups that are these expert groups that are going to be looking at delimitation and at border management. In some ways, what they are saying is that under the joint working group, where we used to have these discussions on delimitation and on CBMs, the confidence building measures, as we used to call it those days, we are going back to that period. So let us see how this actually pans out. I think we can afford to be friends with China. I don't think we shall be bosom buddies because there is a nature of competition that is inherent in this. But I say that our objective is to expand cooperation, to look at how we manage competition, and to limit and prohibit conflict. So, but these 3 C's with China needs to be managed very carefully: conflict, competition, and cooperation.
You know, the reason why I ask is because we have a menace in the form of Pakistan, and that's a direct threat to India. China seems to be really supplying 60% of Pakistan's arms to them. And at a time like this, when China needs a friend, should India be that? Because China feels bullied from the West extensively, the United States. And while India can share a great equation and rapport with Russia, can we also share that similar rapport with China? Should that be India's strategy as well? Just to counter also Pakistan.
I think we have to also understand that Pakistan is not such a significant threat anymore. And I think the manner in which we dealt with Pakistan in Operation Sindoor, the political will in dealing with our neighbor in the West, the kind of military might that we were able to unleash on Pakistan quite demonstrated that Pakistan is not a significant threat anymore. So now that we've been able to establish that, we look at the next level. And I think the ideas that you mentioned of how China deals with Pakistan is an important element. We see that Pakistan is now courting the United States because the kind of collaboration that it had with China was not sufficient to defend its interests, or its misinterests, one might say. And so what we need to do now is to push that lever further to make sure that China is more cognizant that in the long term, its interests would lie with India rather than with Pakistan. And so it has to give up ideas like CPEC. It's been a big investment. But, when you violate the sovereignty of another country, that is a very serious transgression. And the Chinese need to understand that. They have to understand that the kind of defense collaboration that they have with the Pakistanis was trying to actually buttonhole India into a South Asia context. But it has not succeeded because India has actually grown beyond that. We are actually in China's neighborhood. And so they need to understand that. We also need to put this pressure on cross-border terrorism. And I hope that in the SCO, we will meet with some more success this time. Defense Minister Rajnath
Prime
Singh
Minister
had
Modi has also, in the latest we hear Prime Minister Modi speaking with Zelensky. Very interesting considering that India at this point is friends with Russia. There's clear friendship. We purchase oil from Russia. And also Prime Minister Modi dialing Zelensky, speaking to Zelensky, committing to ensuring peace. And if there's any forum or a platform where India can push peace, it will. And it has asserted on peace that war is not a solution. And Zelensky, we hear, has updated Modi on all the happenings of the war. So in a way, India keeping good equation, even with the Ukrainian President Zelensky, speaks for itself. And on the sidelines of SCO, we know that Prime Minister Modi is also going to be meeting with Putin. So India really, showing to be autonomous, wanting business interests with the countries it enjoys a certain amount of relationship, but yet at the same time deciding what it should do. That nobody is guiding India as to what to do when in terms of bilateral equations or at least global diplomacy. India on its own making its decisions and speaking with the Ukrainian president, speaking to Putin now on the sidelines of SCO, asserting peace but yet purchasing oil from Russia. So, the many dimensions of India, it's interesting to watch, an interesting era for India.
It is indeed. I think the Zelensky call was particularly important because the kind of pressure that there are from certain lobbies in the United States, which was trying to say that India has become more of a supporter of Russia's war efforts. It was important to emphasize and point out that India is not the cause. and that India has actually been in the interest of bringing peace between Russia and Ukraine. And Prime Minister had actually even traveled to Ukraine on this particular mission. So I think it was important for Prime Minister to do that, to send a signal, not only that we are, apostles of peace, and we wish to have that, and this is not the age for war, but also to send that signal to the Americans that they are actually very mistaken on this additional 25% and the reasons that they attribute to it.
Okay. I'm going to slip into Prime Minister Modi's talk on that stage. We have a small snippet as to what he said as part of the bilateral meet. Let's listen in.
मैं आपका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। पिछले वर्ष कल्याण में हमारी बहुत ही सार्थक चर्चा हुई। हमारे संबंधों को एक सकारात्मक दिशा मिली। सीमा पर डिसएंगेजमेंट के बाद शांति, हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की। दोनों देशों के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट भी फिर से शुरू की जा रही है। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के हित जुड़े हुए। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध हैं। एजेंसी चीन द्वारा एचसीओ की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
All right, really, Prime Minister Modi there setting the ball rolling for good equations and relationship with China. That's the bilateral meet that's currently underway. Let me reiterate, this meet that was scheduled for 40 minutes has now extended beyond the scheduled time. The talk is still on even as we speak. So these are live images that came in for moments before, rather deferred live, but the meeting is still on. We've just got snippets of that meeting out to play it for. Now, remember, not all are happy with India-China coming together. Of course, Trump seems to be the least pleased with this meeting. But that said, we understand that Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli has also resisted India-China friendship, particularly on trade along the Lipu Lake Pass, and also has requested China to oppose India's push for trade along that pass. As Nepal now pushes for an SCO membership, Nepal has put the first request and basically against and not very pleased with India-China trade, especially along that Lipu Lake Pass route. Collins, would you have an idea on that? Would you want to establish Nepal's objection?
Yeah, we've seen this ever-evolving dynamics of the region, but I would argue that, US still remains as India's most critical partner, especially in balancing China.
Yeah.
We have seen how, in terms of securing India's needs, providing India with cutting-edge defense platforms from, Apaches to all these military assets and equipment, also as a partner in defending the Indian Ocean. So, of course, we are all cognizant of the fact that India, relies heavily on maritime security, also on free and open Indo-Pacific. So the US remains as the only power that is capable of defending that. And of course, also freedom of navigation and all that. So in terms of cooperation in satellite intelligence, cyber defense, space security, and counter-terrorism, so no other power can replace the US. So, and we have seen that, Russia cannot provide balance against Beijing. Europe lacks the hard power presence in Asia, despite what EU and other European powers have been trying to do so for the past couple of years now. And regional partners alone cannot deter aggression, especially by China. So this leaves US as the only power that is capable of, partnering with India. And the last thing that this region wants, especially in Southeast Asia, of this new drive of pivoting away from China, of course, at the same time also trying to balance and their ties with both US and China, is to see that, India is back to the old conventional way of, being closer again with China, especially in economic and people-to-people's relations and all other aspects apart from defense and security. So, of course, also we have seen how, despite the no-limit ties between Beijing and Moscow, the sense of wariness and mutual suspicion is still there.
Just a moment, we're cutting across to Xi Jinping speaking. We're trying to bring in Xi Jinping's audio on air there. If we have it, let's play that out. All right, we don't have it as yet. I will cue it for our viewers the moment we have it. But there you have India-China on one platform. Bilateral has extended. How unusual is that, Mr. Bhattacharya, for it to extend beyond 40 minutes?
I think I had a feeling that 40 minutes was too short for a meeting that is as important as this one. And I'm happy that it is extended beyond the scheduled time. It also shows the great importance that both sides and both leaders attach to our partnership. And I call it partnership with specific intent, because that's what it is going to be, and that's what it should be. The lack of trust that had happened because of Galwan and other incidents cannot be discounted. But I think at the end of the day, we need to have this very important partnership. It does not very often happen in the Chinese system that you break the protocol and you have an extended meeting, but this is a reflection of the importance of that subject and the importance that the two leaders assign to our partnership.
All right, that's interesting. And I did speak on Nepal's objection to India-China friendship and trade established along the Lipu Lake Pass. Would you give us a sense on what that objection is? Why is it so sensitive to Nepal?
If we look at the middle sector of the India-China border, which is the one where this particular area comes in, the trijunction with Nepal was never formally delimited, and there was a certain point of contention about that, because at some point of time, the Nepalese side had brought up an extended claim which goes into the Lipu Lake Gunji area. This was, of course, never accepted by the Indian side, and it was rejected when the Nepalese Prime Minister raised an objection recently. But this does remain a certain point that the Nepalese have made. In fact, the Nepalese have been provocative enough to actually include a map of theirs with that extended area into the disputed area, into some of their official documentation.
I'm going to cut across to Xi Jinping. We've just got his audio. Let's listen.
This year marks the 75th anniversary of China-India diplomatic ties. Both sides need to approach and handle our relationship from a strategic height and long-term perspective, so as to realize the sustained, sound and steady development of our bilateral ties. We must also step up to our historic responsibility to uphold multilateralism, work together to bring about a multipolar world and more democracy in international relations, and to make our due contributions to peace and prosperity in Asia and around the world.
All right. Well, that was a spokesperson speaking in English, translating from Chinese. She, of course, establishing bilateral ties from an agreement between special representatives on the border standoff to the resumption of Kailash Manasarovar Yatra. Prime Minister Modi stressed on restoration of relation between the two sides, including flights opening up between the two sides, the kind of population that the two countries have that will indulge now in good relations, starting with trade and defense and security. All in all, it seems like this bilateral meet that was scheduled for 40 minutes now has been extended to an hour, and a roundup of aspects have been discussed. Ambassador Sanjay Bhattacharya, I cut you short when you were speaking. We just heard Xi. We hear that he said we are the world's largest population. First of all, India is the largest population now. We've overtaken China. But Xi says China is the most populous country in the world. And he says that the country is working towards peace and prosperity in Asia and around the world, and they're looking for great relations, bilateral relationship with India. Now, the nuances of this talk we don't know yet, but these are a few takeaways that has already come out to the media, which we are relaying. So in-depth conversation of what happened in that whole 1 hour, we're not sure. But just a few takeaways looking at Prime Minister Modi touching upon Manasarovar Yatra. That shows that India was very sentimental about that. The fact that now it's begun again shows first signs of a thaw.
Oh, absolutely. I think there has been a significant improvement in the situation. Prime Minister referred to the disengagement in the border areas and the prevalence of peace and stability in those regions. And for us, that was the basic prerequisite before we could actually proceed ahead. The Chinese, in contrast, have always wanted to look at it from the overall and strategic perspective. And you notice Xi Jinping in his comments also referred to that. And while we do accept that, we do not accept that there can be disturbance or the breakage of peace and tranquility on the border. So these two will have to go together. And in fact, the peace and tranquility on the border is a prerequisite towards having this continued development in other areas. I think the emotional content of that is also very significant because the importance of Mount Kailash is inherent in our culture and civilization. So that is something that cannot be done away with. And in the days when we were actually having difficulty in continuing with this Kailash Mansarovar Yatra with the Chinese side, because we work on this collaboratively between the two, there were many Indian pilgrims who would actually take the Nepalese route to go and visit Kailash, because you cannot take away Kailash from our sentiment. And I'm happy that the process has resumed, and in fact, the first few groups have actually gone across this year. What was also mentioned by Xi Jinping, I think, which was important, was on working towards peace and security in Asia. And I think we'll have to look into the deeper context in which this was said, but it affects something that is not just on our border, but you see there are instances of breakage of peace and security all along Chinese frontiers. And if you look at what has happened seas, for instance, with the Philippines and some of the other countries in ASEAN, there is an instance that, we need to restore peace and security in Asia. And finally, his reference to democracy and multipolarity, democracy in multilateralism, is something that we have actually talked about. But there is a slight nuance in the way China looks at the reform of the multilateral system and the way we look at it. So we'll have to see what the fine print was.
Prime Minister Modi, particularly in his opening talk there at the SCO bilateral, said that we had a productive meeting in Kazan, Xi and Modi, and relationship is going in the positive direction, and there is peace and stability along the borders. That's a big statement coming in from Prime Minister Modi. He said there is peace and stability along the borders, which means we are looking at status quo, we are looking at China living up to the bargain. At least the last few months or a year or more, a little more than a year, China has behaved. And Prime Minister Modi specifically mentioning that there is peace and tranquility along the borders, stability and peace along the borders, that speaks for itself, that that's already set a platform for us to move forward with China.
Oh, absolutely. And I think coming from Prime Minister, that's a very important endorsement that we must take, because if that is his assessment, we will go with that. We do know that there has been disengagement, that there has been reduction of forces in many areas, but there are still some areas. We've also worked out the patrolling limits and the coordination of how we do the patrolling in the border areas. So there has been huge progress. There are certain issues that still remain, which of course I think they're discussing under the of America. And I would like to support and endorse what he said, that while we are building this partnership with China and we seek to strengthen it further, we do not mean to say that our relations with the Americas, with the United States, has to be any less. In fact, over a period of time, that partnership will continue to grow as well.
Okay. Collins, who is also with us. Collins, before that, if I could play out Prime Minister Modi, what he said, Xi also speaking. Let's hear it yet again. Remember, this is just a snippet of what the two leaders said. There has been extensive talk. The 40-minute bilateral meet has extended to an hour, so we're not able to establish exactly what was said there as part of this meet, but from whatever takeaways we have, at least Prime Minister Modi saying that there is peace on the borders, 2.5 billion people, and its relation with the two countries matter, because this is how we are going to establish peace between the two sides. A great relationship he hopes for great relationship with China, and he says this is a start. So a small takeaway from this meeting we're going to play out for you.
हमारे गर्मजोशी भरे स्वागत के लिए मैं आपका हृदय से आभार व्यक्त करता हूं। पिछले वर्ष कयान में हमारी बहुत ही सार्थक चर्चा हुई। हमारे संबंधों को एक सकारात्मक दिशा मिली। सीमा पर डिसएंगेजमेंट के बाद शांति और स्थिरता का माहौल बना हुआ है। हमारे स्पेशल रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स के बीच बॉर्डर मैनेजमेंट के संबंध में सहमति बनी। कैलाश मानसरोवर यात्रा फिर से शुरू की। दोनों देशों के बीच डायरेक्ट फ्लाइट भी फिर से शुरू की जा रही है। हमारे सहयोग से दोनों देशों के 2.8 बिलियन लोगों के हित जुड़े हुए हैं। इससे पूरी मानवता के कल्याण का मार्ग भी प्रशस्त होगा। परस्पर विश्वास, सम्मान और संवेदनशीलता के आधार पर हम अपने संबंधों को आगे बढ़ाने के लिए प्रतिबद्ध है। एजेंसी चीन द्वारा एचसीओ की सफल अध्यक्षता के लिए मैं आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं।
All right, so that's a real big takeaway and a big message that Prime Minister Modi has given as he establishes relationship between the two countries, saying that 2.8 billion people and their peace are going to be relying extensively on the two nations' cooperations. So we are expecting huge trade deals to come across, or at least after this bilateral meet, something substantial to go with. Let's hope. We will wait for details to come in on what was established as part of that bilateral. Let me bring in Collins on that. Collins, multiple countries who are part of this very meet, including Pakistan and Malaysia. So how important is this SCO summit? Apart from, of course, India, China, we also know that Pakistan's Prime Minister is going to be there. Putin, Russia's Prime Minister, is going to be there. Malaysian Prime Minister. So this is a heady mix of all Southeast Asian countries coming together on one platform. So what's to expect beyond India-China relations? You're on mute, yeah.
Yeah, sorry. This is a continuation of the expansion of the region's move towards, this new, dependence on other powers, including, of course, with BRICS and Global South, away from this, this US-centric market access, and of course also it's a reflection of the, ASEAN stance also to be neutral, to be non-aligned in its foreign conduct. But I want to continue where I left earlier, because we have seen how the importance of, this new regional strategic shift that we have seen now. China is leveraging on India for multiple, multifactorial kind of reasons. We have seen how India is gaining importance to China, not only in terms of, as a counterweight towards US, but also in geographically speaking, we have seen how now China is being encircled. To the east, we have Japan, now we have South Korea, and of course, to the southern flank, we have Vietnam, a potential risk. Of course, India in its southwestern border. We have also growing U.S. presence in the Central Asia. And also we have these, ups and downs of ties with Russia, despite the no-limits ties with Moscow. There's always this consistent suspicions and mutual wariness. And of course, also India-Russia ties went way back during the Cold War. And in fact, I would argue that Russia has, more trust on India as compared to China. So this is the reality that Beijing is well, cognizant of. And of course, we have seen how the region also is trying to pivot away from this Beijing-centric, economic dependence, and trying to diversify its economic dependence with, now India looking at India now as a growing power. But we have to contend also with the reality that China wants to maintain its primacy as the regional hegemonic power. And looking at India as a convenient, short-term economic opening for China, also as a conduit to the US. But, we have to contend also with the fact that, India has to face the reality of being, locked in with the geographical reality of being China's neighbor. So historically speaking, you can see that the greatest threat or risk or suspicions always come from your immediate neighbors. And, and US in this sense provides this ultimate long-term sense of confidence, security, despite, roadblocks along the road, despite bumps and barriers. We have seen also how, when push comes to shove, the ultimate interest of defending one's national interest, one's territorial integrity, one's sovereignty will always, supersede any other arrangements. And this is how we see now that, India's, for the past couple of years now, disputes with China, with Pakistan, and US, to me, I would argue, remains the only power that is both capable and ever ready, despite, limitations in different segments of ties, including on economic ties now, to provide these long-term confidence-building measures and also long-term trust to ensure that India, although being confined to its non-aligned policy, foreign policy conduct, will have this stable continuity in terms of, securing India's rise along the way as, being the second and the third largest economic power, and also as to ensure that this transition of power in the long term. We have seen how China is now on the decline in terms of demographic growth, in terms of economic instability. India is, quickly, trying to replace that in terms of its own internal advantages, from demographic advantages to new economic transition. So this rise to replace China, how will it be facilitated? Will it be supported by regional powers? Will it be supported by the US? So, of course, this is a long-term kind of gameplay and maneuvering and power transition that we are looking now. And it's important now for the region, for India, to also look at the bigger picture as to how this transition can take place smoothly. And, of course, China will also want regional buy-in, as he has been doing so for many years now in the region. In the case of a future conflict with Taiwan, and, to open up a second front, potentially, from the Ladakh border standoff now, how India can play that role and how much of a risk that India can pose in the build-up towards China eventually, unifying with Taiwan now. So these are the maneuvering options that we can see happening now. But I would argue that
just a little glimpse into who are the SCO members. Looking clearly into the SCO membership, we understand the SCO itself was established in 1996 as a security bloc that was at that point dubbed as Shanghai Five. It was formed by China, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, and this was done to settle some border disputes that followed after the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union. And then years to come later, in 2017, the group expanded to include India and Pakistan. Also, Iran is now a member of the SCO, and Belarus, who is also added as full members. Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Turkey, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, Cambodia are all basically dialogue partners. They're not full members of the SCO, they're all dialogue partners. So in a way, we're looking at SCO member states accounting for nearly 43% of the world's population. So this summit here is certainly integral and important as it establishes trade ties, defense, security and peace across a region that houses 43% of the world's population. So this is certainly significant. Collins, how do you think that SCO undermines Quad? Quad is a group of nations that basically has been established by the United States to balance and counter China, or rather the Asia's power.
Yes, we have seen now SCO as a longer historical legacy as compared to Quad. but the importance, the strategic importance of Quad, not only to India, but of course to the other Quad members, have been profound. And if you look into SCO, the whole model, apart from, of course, promoting more people-to-people ties, CBMs, trust building, confidence building, and all that, as a primarily new strategic, geopolitical power play by, regional powers, especially by China, as a counterweight to what, this traditional Western-led order of the past. But we have not seen such the extent of success from SCO now. Internal differences have been profound in terms of managing own interests, and of course also we have seen also the same case with other groupings now. There's no sustained pushing factor towards achieving the ultimate objective of SCO, and there's no also sustained internal economic synergy as with the same case with ASEAN. So and we have also differences among even SCO members and also observers. So I don't see the extent of the impact that SCO might pose to rival or to challenge the enduring economic power of the traditional Western-led order. Even RCEP or this new ASEAN-led initiative, I don't think will rival the in fact even the bilateral power of the US in terms of dictating economic play and using the tariff measure as the example recently.
I really appreciate you staying along on this marathon coverage, Collins. Thank you very much for being part of this.
Thank you, Nabil.
This was certainly Prime Minister Modi's first visit to China after 7 years has already gone on a great footing. It started off well with Prime Minister Modi as part of that SCO summit, had a bilateral chat with Xi Jinping for nearly an hour, much more than the scheduled 40 minutes. So that itself establishes that the two countries are eager to take relationship forward. Modi very clearly said that there is peace along the borders. So now we've got to step up the relationship in terms of trade and security and expanding the two economies on a mutual front. Well, this is certainly a big move forward after Trump tariffs. India-China coming together on one platform as part of the SCO is a massive statement sent out to the West. We will continue tracking those details, but for now, thank you very much for watching.
You glow different when you're in love. 16 million shades of love to choose from. Unlimited Love B6.
A small window of hope has opened for Nimisha Priya. Human beings live by hope. Is Vijay challenging Dravidian party? Payments have been made, but no books inside. If there is corruption at the BO office, maybe I want to learn Hindi, that I do not know how to speak Kannada. Go to the second part.
to have Hindi compulsion.
2 kids were asked to clean the toilet because of their caste. All these kids were forced to do it. I will clearly protest against this. 3 passes, Mr. Gowda. People rushed. I'm asking you, what